We all know what it's like to be overlooked. This is the story of someone who didn't let that define her. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. Now take a deep breath and let's step into this incredible journey together. Rain came down in torrents, angry and relentless, drenching the city like the sky had finally lost its temper. Each heavy drop slammed into the pavement, turning sidewalks into trap-filled puddles of black water. And in the middle of it all, a girl was running. Small frame, broken umbrella, shoes soaked through, eyes wide with panic. She looked like a raindrop lost in a flood. Her name was Leah Park, 26, unemployed for almost 6 months. And today wasn't just another job interview. It was her last shot before everything unraveled. She weaved through the crowds, gasping for air, her soaked clothes clinging to her skin like judgment. Her eyes flicked to her watch. Late. Really late. Red light. She didn't stop. 2 more blocks. Just 2 more. The glass and steel tower of Foster Group loomed ahead, sleek and powerful, a monument to everything she didn't have. Then it happened. Screech! Tires cut through the street like a blade. A luxury car flew past her. Splash! A tidal wave of cold, brown city sludge exploded from a pothole, hitting her head on. The umbrella flipped inside out. Her cream slacks turned to brown. Her once white blouse, now a blotchy disaster. She stood frozen, rain and mud dripping from her hair, lips parted in silent disbelief. The car slowed. The tinted window rolled down. Inside, a man. Sharp jawline, crisp suit, steel blue stare, a walking cologne ad. He glanced at her. Just a glance. No smirk, no apology. Window up, car gone. Leah stood there, fists clenched, shaking with fury and humiliation. "You saw me," she muttered under her breath. "You designer penguin. You soulless poster child for upper management." She had 2 choices. Go home, cry, and eat instant noodles in the dark. Or walk into that office building, mud-covered and outnumbered. But unbroken. She walked in. And in that exact moment, soaking wet, covered in city grime, dignity threadbare, Leah Park made a decision that would change her life forever. Not because she nailed the interview, but because she showed up when the world told her to go home. The lobby of Foster Group gleamed like a glass cathedral. Everything was spotless, calculated, perfectly composed. The lighting was soft and elegant, like moonlight gently touching high heels and designer blazers. And then, Leah walked in. Muddy shoes, wrinkled clothes, hair like a bird's nest post-storm. She looked like she had crash-landed from a post-apocalyptic indie film, straight into a corporate fashion shoot. Every step she took made that squelching sound, the kind that echoes in places where silence and judgment go hand in hand. Heads turned, then quickly turned away. That polite kind of shame people reserve for things they'd rather not look at. Leah didn't flinch. "Name?" the front desk girl asked, lips red, tone beige. "Leah Park," she said coolly, adjusting her bag like it was Chanel, not soaked canvas. She sat like a queen on a plastic throne. A woman in a pink blazer beside her subtly shifted away, as if Leah's presence might be contagious. Leah smiled. She didn't need perfume. She had nerve and wit. Ding. The elevator doors opened, and time itself seemed to pause. Henry Foster entered, youngest CEO in the company's history. The press called him Einstein in Armani. He moved like his steps were choreographed by a luxury car commercial, precise, silent, unnervingly confident. His gaze swept across the lobby like he was curating an art exhibit. Then his eyes landed. On her. Leah met them head-on. For a split second, the storm outside went still. "Tsunami in a suit," she muttered. "Fancy penguin, limited edition executive." He didn't frown, didn't smile, didn't say a word, He just walked past, as if she were some curious sculpture in the lobby's abstract art collection. Of course, she sighed. Probably thinks mud is a luxury skincare trend. The room was glass, sleek, quiet. A designer espresso machine hummed like a well-trained butler. Leia walked in, head high, like the mud on her clothes was fashion-forward irony. Henry looked up. His steel gaze met her muddy reality, and something twitched at the corner of his mouth. A flicker. A glitch in the matrix. "Mr. Foster," she said, composed. "Apologies for my appearance. The city had a surprise for me." That happens, especially to people who ignore weather forecasts or crosswalk hazards. And to drivers who treat crosswalks like polite suggestions, she replied, smiling. He folded his arms, still watching her. "I like honesty and boldness, or is this just compensation for poor presentation?" "This is the real thing," she said. "The mud just adds texture." A beat. And then, he laughed, a real one, quiet, short but unmistakable. "All right, Miss Park, why do you think you're a good fit to be my assistant?" "I'm tough, quick on my feet, and I don't quit easily. I've proven all three just by showing up here instead of crying into expired ramen noodles." He glanced down at her resume. It smudged. "I was going for thematic consistency," she shrugged. This time his laugh came easier. Leia walked out of that room not knowing if she got the job. But she knew one thing for sure. In a world built on polish and performance, she'd just made a CEO laugh. If this story spoke to you, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. So next time I'll still be right here, ready to tell you another one. The first day should have been a fresh start. Instead, it played out like a slow-motion disaster reel. Leia showed up early, clean this time, determined. She wore her best outfit, simple blouse, modest skirt, hair tied back with resolve, and a single bobby pin clinging for dear life. By 9:11 a.m., coffee was on the carpet. By 9:12, so was she. A borrowed heel snagged on her pants. The tray tilted. The crash echoed like a slap across the company's perfect reputation. Hot espresso splattered across the hallway like modern art gone rogue. Executives turned. Whispers spread. Henry Foster, walking with two Japanese partners, didn't yell, didn't flinch. He simply closed the glass door to his meeting, with surgical calm. But his look? That said, "I will bury you under 1,000 spreadsheets." Melissa, the senior assistant, passed by with a smile that could cut glass. "Off to a great start, Park." By 10 a.m., she'd banged her elbow on a printer, confused 3-file systems, and discovered her desk had a drawer that refused to open without a small prayer and a shove. She could have cried. Instead, she laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. Then she whispered to herself, "No tripping. No crying. And for heaven's sake, no fainting." That promise lasted until 3:47 p.m. Chaos found her again. An urgent client delivery had just arrived, but the presentation file was outdated, scrambled, and no one could understand Henry's custom layout logic. Melissa panicked. The print shop was printing the wrong version. Henry was due to present in less than an hour. Leia stepped forward. "I can fix it," she said. Silence. Everyone stared. A few eyebrows arched. Henry looked up slowly from his screen. "You know the layout?" "Nope," Leia replied. "But I speak fluent last-minute crisis." She grabbed the flash drive, plugged it in, and dove headfirst into chaos. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. She rearranged slides using visual logic, fixed titles, realigned icons. She added clear legends, grouped data, built a closing summary that was elegant, intuitive, and, most importantly, ready. The room watched. No trembling hands, no apologies, just focus. Henry leaned in to see the final version on the projector. A moment of silence. Then, "This will save us from embarrassment tomorrow," he said flatly. Then, without looking at her, "Good job, Park." Leia smiled. "See? Not all mud is useless." Henry's lips twitched, a near smile, dangerously close to approval. That evening, as she packed up her things, one elbow sore, one heel cracked, and one dignity slightly restored, Leia finally breathed. She didn't just survive the day. She saved it. And for the first time, the whispers behind her didn't sting, because one very important pair of eyes had seen exactly what she could do when pressure pressed hardest. The foster group office looked the same: spotless glass, polished floors, hallways that echoed only heels and restraint. But something had changed. It wasn't in the lighting, though it felt colder. It wasn't in the air, though it was heavier. It was in the eyes. They lingered longer now when Leia walked by. Some glanced and quickly looked away, pretending not to see. Others whispered just low enough for her to hear the shape of their laughter. And a few just stared, as if waiting for gravity to do its job and pull her back down. Leia noticed. Of course she did, but she kept walking, shoulders back, chin up, not because she was fearless, no, but because fear had long lost its grip on her. She'd already stood in mud with the world watching. A few sideways glances. Please. At the far end of the executive floor, past the frosted glass that softened nothing, Melissa Rocha sat like a queen of ice behind her sleek chrome desk. Tailored navy blazer, red nails, eyes sharp as scalpels. She had been there for over a decade, long enough to know every corner of the company, long enough to own them. In silence, with a smile, and she did not appreciate noise, especially noise wrapped in sarcasm and wearing thrift store blouses. Leia was chaos in lipstick form. Too loud, too honest, too noticed. Henry had smiled twice this week, and both times Leia was in the room. Melissa had counted. "She's getting too comfortable," she murmured one morning, not to anyone in particular, but loud enough for the air to remember. Her assistant nodded slowly. Too slowly. "It's probably just a phase," he offered weakly. Melissa didn't reply. She just closed the folder in her hand, too quietly. Her smile, when it came, was all teeth and no warmth. That afternoon, Leia stood in the break room, pouring coffee. Behind her, the low hum of conversation faded. Then came the soft sound of stilettos. Melissa's perfume arrived first, sharp, floral, artificial. "Miss Park," she said sweetly, "you seem busy." "You know me," Leia replied, turning around. "Always juggling coffee and expectations." Melissa tilted her head. "It's important to pace yourself. Sometimes, those who rise too fast burn out before they shine." A pause, a smile. Then Melissa was gone, heels clicking, spine straight, poison left behind like smoke. Leia stood there, coffee in hand, the smile still on her lips. But her fingers had curled tightly around the mug. Later that week, strange things began to happen. A calendar invite went missing. A file Leia had updated was suddenly replaced with an older version. A hallway conversation went silent when she walked in. "And Henry?" he noticed, but said nothing. Not yet. He was watching. Calculating. Because the problem wasn't just tension between two women. It was something deeper. The system was shifting, and Leia Park, with her reckless honesty and inconvenient brilliance, was either the beginning of change or the match that would light the fire. It started with a manila folder. Plain, unmarked, left neatly on her desk just after lunch. Inside, a list of internal vendor bids, project budgets, and one file marked Confidential, Executive use only. Leia blinked. She wasn't supposed to see this. She knew that. But it was labeled as a deliverable from Melissa, just in time for a meeting Henry had in 10 minutes. She hesitated, fingers grazing the pages, mind racing. Is this a mistake? Or a message? Her gut twisted. Still, instinct, and a lifetime of doing the right thing, nudged her forward. She straightened the pages, tucked them into a leather folio, and made her way upstairs. The office was unusually quiet. Henry was at his desk, sleeves rolled up, attention buried in numbers. When she stepped in, he didn't look up. I brought the documents for the vendor review. Melissa had them sent down. Silence. Then slowly, too slowly, he raised his head, his eyes locked on the folder in her hands, then on her, and something shifted. Who gave you this? It was on my desk. Melissa's assistant said it was urgent. Did you read it? Some of it, just to organize. The silence turned cold. He stood, closed the door, and for the first time since she met him, Henry Foster didn't look amused. This file contains sensitive, top-tier negotiation data. What you just carried in here could land this company, and you, in legal hell if it's mishandled. Leia swallowed hard. I didn't steal it. I didn't even want to touch it. But it was there. And your meeting was in 10 minutes. I thought... You thought? He cut in. You thought stepping into executive business, unasked, was a good idea? A beat. Then, Leia stepped forward. Not aggressively, but clearly. No. I thought stepping away would look worse, and if this was a test, intended or not, I chose to act. I didn't snoop, I didn't copy. I walked it to you. Henry didn't speak. For a moment, the room held its breath. He looked at her again, this time deeper, past the defensiveness, past the nerves, and saw something steady, not innocence, not perfection, but character. Henry exhaled, long and slow. Sit, he said finally, his voice quieter now. Let me explain something. She sat, rigid but calm. In this world, Park, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent will matter more than talent. Trust can be shattered in a heartbeat. But sometimes when people show who they are in pressure moments, you see enough to keep believing in them. Then, a pause. You did the right thing. Next time, do it cleaner. Her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. Enough to breathe again. So I'm not fired? Not unless you bring me decaf again. Noted. A flicker of a smile crossed his lips. Respect, finally visible, earned, not given. As Leia stepped out, the air felt lighter, but she knew it wasn't over. Melissa wasn't done. The whispers wouldn't stop. But today, she didn't just survive the trap. She turned it into a statement that in a world full of games, power plays, and sabotage, sometimes the strongest move is still just doing the right thing. The email came at 6:03 a.m. Sharp, unexpected, subject line, Need you on this. Leia blinked twice. She hadn't even brushed her teeth. Her eyes scanned the body of the message. Brief, direct, Henry style. Fashion Week client event. Big names, bigger pressure. I need someone who can improvise without panicking. You in? No title. No fluff. Just a line that, in Foster Group language, translated to, I trust you. Leia sat there, phone in hand, heart ticking faster than her old toaster. This wasn't a test. This was a leap of faith. The event was set in an abandoned train station, an edgy industrial canvas for one of the year's most high-profile fashion launches. There were LED tunnels, rotating runways, seating charts from hell, and sabotage. 2 days before the show, the floral designer backed out. A scheduling error. Then the AV team misplaced 3 stage renderings, the ones Leia had personally edited. And on the day of, The wrong playlist started blasting at rehearsal, something between 90s techno and existential despair. Coincidence? Unlikely. Leia didn't flinch. Instead, she rolled up her sleeves, literally, and rebuilt the show from scratch. She replaced missing flowers with urban sculptures made from scaffolding poles and silk. She called in a college friend with a drone camera to create an aerial LED intro no one expected. She remapped the entire seating layout in 3 hours flat using color-coded sticky notes and a borrowed stepladder. "Park, this place was chaos yesterday," one executive whispered. "Now it looks like Milan met Brooklyn and fell in love." As the first model stepped onto the runway, the music shifted. Leia's curated playlist. It was smooth, soulful, confident, just like her. Henry stood in the crowd, arms folded, eyes narrowed. He said nothing. But when the show ended and applause rolled through the vaulted ceiling, he walked over. "Park," he said, "you just saved a multi-million-dollar contract, with zip ties and backup Wi-Fi. Glad to be of service." She smiled. But it was actually duct tape and bubblegum. A beat of silence. Then he laughed. Loud this time, a sound so unfamiliar it made a nearby VP drop his champagne glass. "Next time," Henry said, "remind me to get out of your way sooner." From that moment, something changed. Henry no longer referred to her as the new girl in executive meetings. He now asked, "Where's Leia on this?" He no longer looked through her. He looked to her. Not because she dressed the part, not because she schmoozed the right people, but because she showed up again and again in ways no one else dared to. She didn't rise because someone opened a door. She rose because she kicked it open, with duct tape in one hand and grit in the other. It began with a phone vibration, a casual buzz on the subway, then another, then 5. By the time Leia stepped into the office that morning, her name wasn't just on a desk. It was on the internet. The video, shaky, vertical, and time-stamped weeks ago, had captured that very first moment. The splash, the mud, the soaked blouse, the awkward stillness as the luxury car drove off. And then her, standing there like a sculpture carved from defiance. Someone had dug it up, someone had posted it, and it went viral. Headlines spun fast, faster than she could breathe. Mudgirl makes it to the top floor, from pity to power. Foster Group CEO and his rainy day favorite. Real talent or publicity pawn. Even the anchors laughed. Lightly, of course. Like her story was a charming fluke, a coffee table anecdote dressed up in designer PR. Inside the office, the looks changed again. But this time, they weren't amused. They were calculating. Cold. Some started whispering when she passed. Others stopped whispering altogether. "It's all about the timing," someone said behind her back. "A car splashes mud on you, and suddenly you're running VIP events? Please, that kind of story doesn't happen without someone upstairs pulling strings." She'd fought her way in with grit. Now they saw her as a gimmick. In the elevator, no one met her eyes. She stood there, alone in a crowd of pressed suits and curated smiles. The lights above flickered gently as floors passed by. Leia didn't shift, didn't speak. But inside, something cracked. Is this what visibility costs? She had survived being invisible, but being misunderstood, that cut deeper. That evening she stayed late, the office mostly empty. Henry found her staring out the window, skyline glowing, reflection pale. "I figured you'd call in sick today," he said gently. "Tempting," she replied, voice steady. "But then they'd win." He walked closer, leaned on the edge of her desk. "You've earned your place, Leia. No one here doubts that." She looked at him. Really looked. "Don't defend me." "Why not?" Because if you say I deserve this, they'll say I got it from you. A long pause, then, let me fight my own war, she whispered. Let them underestimate me. I'd rather earn back their respect than hold on to a version they already doubt. Henry didn't argue. He just nodded. That week, she removed all the articles from her feed, turned off notifications. But she kept one post. Just one. A grainy photo of her at the fashion event, standing beside a sculpture she rebuilt from chaos. No caption, no tag. Just a moment where she was more than the mud girl. She was Leia Park, exactly who she'd always been, and slowly, painfully. The noise would fade, but the work, that would stay. And if stories like Leia's remind you of your own strength, make sure you subscribe. There's always more to tell. It was supposed to be a work dinner. A follow-up, Henry had said, just to regroup after the event. No ties, no entourage, no notes, just two people who had survived the same storm, now sitting across from each other in a house far too quiet for someone so powerful. Henry's apartment was exactly as she'd imagined. Minimalist, clean, cold in color but not in feeling. The lighting was soft, golden, like a film scene paused just before something meaningful happened. In the center of it all, a wooden dining table, aged, imperfect. The only thing in the place that felt human. They ate simply. Wine, roasted vegetables, no speeches. Leia sat with one leg tucked under her, sleeves rolled up, laughter still warm from something silly he'd said about a failed risotto attempt last year. Henry, across from her, watched. Not in the way a man sizes up a woman, but the way a man watches a truth he didn't expect to find in a person. You always think this much? He asked. Only when it's quiet, she replied. And are you okay with quiet? I'm learning to be. Silence again. But this time it was soft. Shared. Not awkward. Later they stood by the window. Outside, the city pulsed. Millions of lights pretending not to feel anything. Inside, she leaned slightly against the frame, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded in thought. He was beside her now, closer than expected. Close enough for their reflections to blur into one. I didn't expect you, he said finally. To do the job? No. To matter. She turned to look at him. Slowly. Her gaze didn't challenge, but it didn't shrink either. That's the thing with people like me, Mr. Foster. We're easy to ignore, until we're not. A small smile tugged at the edge of his lips. Not his CEO smile, the real one. Worn. Quiet. A little too tender for boardrooms. You can call me Henry, you know. Only when you stop calling me impressive. He laughed under his breath. It wasn't flirtation. Not yet. It was recognition. Something warmer, more fragile. At the door, she slipped into her coat. He held it for her without a word. His hand brushed her shoulder. Brief, unintentional, but the moment stayed. Thanks for dinner, she said. Thanks for saying yes to the job. I didn't say yes for you. I know, that's why it worked. She paused, one hand on the doorknob. This doesn't change who I am, she said. I wouldn't want it to. Their eyes met one last time. Not a goodbye, just an understanding. An acknowledgement that something had started. Not a romance, not yet, but a bond that didn't need a name. The morning she decided to leave was not dramatic. No shouting, no tears. Just a quiet knowing. Like the moment before the tide pulls back. Leia sat by her desk, fingers still on the keyboard, screen glowing with unread emails. Outside, the world was just beginning to stretch awake. But inside her, a stillness had already settled. She had fought, earned, proved, again and again, but now she was being absorbed, not respected, not fully. Every nod in the hallway came with a shadow of curiosity. Every win whispered down the line as his protege. Every effort, no matter how true, twisted by politics she never asked to play. She had become the symbol, not the person. There was no dramatic catalyst, no final insult, just a realization. Staying would mean slowly becoming someone else. And Leia Park had spent too long becoming herself to risk losing that. Henry found it later that afternoon. On his desk. No fanfare, no subject line. Just her handwriting. Neat, centered, unflinching. Henry, I came here thinking I needed a title to prove my worth. Turns out all I needed was a mirror, and the courage to look. Thank you for giving me a place to grow, but staying now would mean shrinking into someone I'm not. I hope you understand. Leia, he read it once. Then again, the silence in his office grew heavier with every word. That evening, he walked past her desk. The chair was tucked in, the monitor dark, but a paperclip sculpture she used to fidget with was still there, one loop bent sideways like it was trying to escape. Funny, the way absence could take up more space than presence ever did. He stood there longer than he meant to, not because he didn't see it coming, but because he hoped she'd change her mind. She didn't, because Leia wasn't built to be someone's echo. She had come in with mud on her clothes and light in her eyes, and she would leave. Clean, clear, and completely her own. 6 months passed. The city still moved in its chaotic rhythm. Coffee spilled, deals closed, subways late. But something in Leia Park had changed. She no longer flinched at the noise, she embraced it. Leia now lived in a sunlit studio above a bookstore in Greenwich Village. The window didn't close right. The radiator hissed like a jazz trumpet. But it was hers. She started small. Late-night journaling, anonymous blog posts, a few honest essays about failure, worth, and how to walk out of the wrong room without bitterness. Then the audience found her, readers wrote back. This feels like my story. Thank you for putting this into words. The blog, the mudroom, grew into something real, not glossy, not viral, but true. Brands reached out. Book agents hovered. But Leia? She turned her phone off at 8 p.m. and watered her plants. She was no longer proving anything. She was living it. Henry changed too. It wasn't loud. He didn't quit his job, didn't post long-winded LinkedIn updates about empathy and leadership. He just started showing up differently. He listened more, delegated better, asked questions instead of making statements. His board noticed, so did his team. Melissa resigned quietly one afternoon. No drama, no grand exit, just a resignation letter and a parting look that said, "She left a mark, didn't she?" Henry didn't answer. He didn't need to. Then came Paris, a global summit. Big names, bigger egos. Henry was invited to speak, and something in him, a whisper maybe, told him it would mean more if she was there. He typed the message carefully. Subject, want to see the Seine again? Leia, I'll be in Paris next month, speaking at that insufferable leadership thing. But what I'd really like is to walk the bridges afterward, with someone who reminds me what it's like to build something real. Just a thought. Henry Leia read the message over black coffee, a stray sunbeam warming the back of her neck. She didn't smile. Not right away. But something in her softened. It wasn't about romance, not yet. It was about returning, not to a job, or a man, or a moment, but to a version of herself that once believed anything was possible. She tapped out a reply. Simple. No emojis, no overthinking. Sounds like Paris could use some grounding. I'll bring the duct tape. And as she hit send, she didn't feel like she was going back. She felt like she was moving forward, just no longer alone. It didn't happen under an arch of roses. There were no string quartets, No save the dates embossed in gold, no dress code, no aisle. Instead, it happened in a park, on a Sunday morning, with shoes kicked off, coffee in hand, and 30-something people sitting on picnic blankets under the trees. The ceremony began when someone's dog barked mid-toast, and Leia laughed so hard she nearly spilled orange juice on her white linen pants. Henry, barefoot in rolled-up chinos, just grinned. No grand gesture, just a quiet moment on the balcony of a Paris apartment, a half-burned candle, her manuscript in his lap, the city lights behind them like breathing stars. "I don't want a version of you in my life," he said. "I want all of you, as you are, even when you're stubborn, especially then." Leia blinked, then asked, "Does this come with a prenup that guarantees full artistic control and at least one argument per week?" "Minimum," he said. "Non-negotiable." And just like that, she said yes. Not because it was perfect, but because it was theirs. There were no vows written in advance. They spoke from the moment, awkward, funny, deeply honest. Henry said, "You make my life messier, thank God." Leia said, "You make me braver, even when I want to run." Someone cried, someone cheered. Their first dance? Not choreographed, not slow, just them, barefoot in the grass, swaying to a playlist Leia had made years ago and never shared. Until now. No spotlight. Just sunlight. And laughter that didn't need permission. As guests packed up, someone asked jokingly, "So what now? Power couple take over the world?" Leia shrugged, looped her arm through Henry's and replied, "Nah, we're just going to live a little louder and spill coffee proudly." And with that, they walked off. No shoes, no script, just two people who built something real from the mess of everything they weren't supposed to be. If you've made it this far, chances are something in this story spoke to you. I'd truly love to know. How would you rate this story on a scale from 1 to 10? And why? Drop your number, and if you'd like, a thought, in the comments below. Your words don't just help me. They become part of the story too. And if you'd like more stories told with heart, don't forget to subscribe so we can meet again in the next one.